Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ABCs of ABA. Today, we're going to talk about 4 steps to using a reinforcement system. I know that it hasn't been long, but I want to start off with a reminder of what reinforcement is. Reinforcement occurs when a behavior is paired with a consequence, and then the behavior occurs more frequently in the future. For example, you want to teach your kiddo how to use the potty. The first time they sit on the potty, the behavior, you give them an M&M, a consequence. They now sit on the potty more frequently, 2 or 3 times a day. Reinforcement increases the frequency of a specific behavior. Now, let's break that down into the 4 steps you need to do to implement reinforcement at home. Step 1, you need to identify the behavior that you want to either teach or increase the frequency of. This step is essential to the success of a reinforcement plan. Why? Think about it as a focus issue. If your description of a behavior is too broad, you will reinforce a variety of unnecessary behaviors, limiting its effect on the actual behavior you want to increase. Pretend you want to reinforce safety. That's a pretty broad behavior. You could spend the day reinforcing sitting on chairs, chewing slowly, walking on the sidewalk, when what you really want to increase is keeping your hands to yourself. So now, for just a minute, imagine a field with one flower in the middle. Think about the flower as the behavior that you want to increase. And you need to water this flower in order to make it grow, right? Right. So we're going to pretend that the water is the reinforcer. You get a hose out so you can water your flower. You set your hose to mist and off you go. You have just watered not only the flower, but all of the weeds in the field so that everything grows. Yes, that flower grows a little bit, but not a whole lot. And now you have to worry about it being taken over by all the other weeds. This is similar to if you reinforce too broad of a behavior. If you reinforce safety, you're going to reinforce all those smaller behaviors, sitting, walking on the sidewalk, and not really put as much reinforcement into that big behavior of keeping their hands and their feet to themselves. So now think about a clearly defined behavior. Again, we'll talk about safety. Now you're reinforcing just keeping their hands and feet to themselves. Now you know exactly what behavior you're going to reinforce and can focus on that. That is similar to setting your hose to a stream and watering just that one flower. And that one flower is going to grow and grow and grow because you're really focusing on it. Here comes the final concern with specifying and describing a behavior. You need to describe and identify a behavior that your kiddo can do. If you pick a behavior that your kiddo is not engaging in now, there's no way that they're ever going to earn that reinforcer. And if they don't earn that good thing, why bother trying? Think about your field and your flower again. This time you have a 50-foot hose, but the flower is 200 feet out there. Even if you put your sprayer on spray, you might not be able to get that water to that flower. So what happens? The poor thing shrivels up and dies. If you want your kiddo to be safe all day, but they can't even make it an hour, you can't make your safety goal a week for them to get that reinforcer. So let's recap. What's step number 1? Step number 1 is to identify a behavior that you want to teach and to describe it so that your participant knows exactly what you're looking for. Step number 2 is identify reinforcers. So what is that individual interested in? What will they work for? This can include your knowledge of the other person, so what you've seen them really enjoy doing. It can also include what they have said to you that they really enjoyed doing. But it really comes down to what are they willing to work for and what are they willing to do for that thing that you want to get them. Another important thing to remember here is that just because a kiddo or an adult or anybody says that they're willing to work for something doesn't mean that they actually are. An item is not a reinforcer until it has increased the frequency of that behavior. What's step number 3? Step number 3 is to explain. So you need to let that individual that you're working with know what the contingency is. They need to know exactly what they're being expected to do in order to get that reinforcer. This can be done using words, having a conversation and just going back and forth, or it can be done using pictures. For instance, if I want my kiddo to raise their hand in order for an M&M, I might show them this token board over here and say, look, when all of these checks are filled out, you get your M&M. And that way they can clearly see what they're working for and how close they are to getting it. Each time they raise their hand, I'm going to give that kiddo another check. The final step when you're setting up a reinforcement system is to create opportunities for the kiddo to earn the reinforcer. If they don't have a chance to earn that reinforcer, they're not going to bother trying to earn it at all. The final thing that we're going to talk about when we consider reinforcement is the big ethical question, or how is this different than bribery? I don't want to bribe my kid to follow my direction. They should just follow it, right? Well, that would be nice, but it doesn't always happen. So what this comes down to is remembering that behaviors are learned. If a kiddo is engaging in a behavior now, even if it's one that you don't want them to do, it means that it's getting them better results than following your actual direction. Maybe that's because they'd rather eat more chocolate and get yelled at than put the chocolate away like you told them to do. Maybe it's they'd rather swim 5 more minutes than come out of the pool like you asked. Maybe it's because making a huge mess and getting a scolding is better than playing by yourself. Whatever it is, they're getting something for not following the directions, and we have to sweeten the pot so that doing the behavior that you want them to engage in is better than not doing it. And how do we do that? We do that by adding a reinforcer: chocolate, praise, free time, movie time, choosing dinner, and the list goes on and on. Secondly, it's all about timing. Bribery occurs when someone offers something good as a result of a bad behavior. So after a tantrum in the bathroom, you offer an M&M for them to sit on the potty. Reinforcement, however, occurs when an offer of something good happens prior to naughty behaviors. On our way to the bathroom, you let the kiddo know that if they sit on the potty, they're going to get that M&M. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things today, and I want to summarize it here. Reinforcement occurs when a consequence follows a behavior, making it more likely that that behavior will occur again in the future. Reinforcement means a behavior happens more frequently. When you make a reinforcement plan at home, you have to follow 4 steps. You have to identify the behavior that you want the individual to engage in. You have to identify reinforcers. You have to talk to the individual about what the plan is and clearly explain to them what their expectations are and what they will get. And you have to give them opportunities to earn that reinforcement. Thanks for listening, guys, and join me next time on the ABCs of ABA to discuss how to use a simple token system within your home to reinforce positive behaviors. Thanks, and see you all later.